Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something really profound: the actual mechanics of consciousness, matter, and how we as humans co-create our reality. We're drawing all our insights directly from a super fascinating source, the channeled teachings of Ascended Masters Mother Mary and Kuan Yin, as delivered through Kim Michaels. Now, whether you're already deeply immersed in esoteric texts or you're just kind of curious about the intersection of mind and matter, this framework offers an incredibly structural, almost mechanical way of looking at reality. We're going to explore exactly how our consciousness projects onto the physical world, how we actually trap ourselves in these stubborn subconscious loops, and most importantly, how we can break free. So, because this material is layered with some pretty heavy esoteric concepts, here is our roadmap for today. First, the hierarchy of elemental beings. Then, the mechanics of memory, followed by creating subconscious selves. After that, we'll look at linear versus intuitive minds, the alpha and omega, and we'll wrap it all up with embracing the gradual flow.
All right, Section 1, Hierarchy of Elemental Beings. So, according to these teachings, the entire fabric of our reality is maintained by what are called elementals. But actually, scratch that. Before you go picturing mythical fairies or goblins hoarding gold in a forest, the text asks us to view elementals essentially as the underlying matrix, kind of like a blank canvas for physical reality. They are literally beings whose sole purpose is to passively hold forms or substances together. And here's the absolutely crucial part. They function entirely without self-awareness. They don't sit around thinking about what they're doing, they just do it.
Think of it like a giant puzzle. These elementals exist in a vast, highly organized hierarchy. At the absolute most general level, you've got elementals holding the matrix for basic atoms, your hydrogen, oxygen, gold. Then, moving up in complexity, you have high-level elementals holding the concept for general substances, like literally all the water on planet Earth. Step it down a bit, and you have an elemental holding the matrix for a highly specific occurrence, like a particular river flowing from the mountains to the sea. And finally, at the most basic specific level, an elemental is created to hold the matrix for a single physical form. Think of a physical clay mug that you just sculpted. They all just work together in this seamless, perfectly organized flow. Moving right along to Section 2, the mechanics of memory. Okay, so if an elemental is out there maintaining the physical forms around us, or even the subtle forms of our own identity and emotional bodies, that begs a really big question. What exactly is memory in this framework? Like, does the elemental itself actually remember the forms it takes on? Let's say you experience a severe trauma. Does the elemental matrix of your physical body absorb and actually remember that trauma? To figure that out, let's compare the elemental to human consciousness. Think of the elemental as a totally blank notepad or a pristine white movie screen. Its only job is to hold the form of the screen perfectly. Now, human consciousness, that's the ink from the pen or the actual movie being projected onto the screen. When you project a memory or a trauma onto your identity, the elemental simply reflects it. That's it. The notepad doesn't know what the letter A means. The movie screen doesn't get traumatized by playing a horror movie, right? Elementals merely reflect the ink or projection of our human consciousness without actually internalizing, understanding, or remembering a single detail of the story being told. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, creating subconscious selves. So if the elemental is just a blank screen, how on earth do we end up with these stubborn subconscious selves? Well, it's basically a three-step process. First, usually in reaction to trauma, you project an image onto your identity body using your consciousness, maybe an image of being a victim. Second, the elemental obediently maintains this form over time, exactly like a notepad holding ink. But here is the real kicker. Step 3. The trap isn't the elemental at all. It's your own consciousness that keeps its energy invested in that image. To dissolve it, you literally have to consciously withdraw your own energy. Think about the Egyptian pharaoh Khufu for a second. His massive physical pyramid still stands today simply because the elementals are blindly maintaining the form of those stones over millennia. Khufu himself doesn't have to sit around constantly thinking about the pyramid to keep it standing. But a subconscious self is not physical. It only survives if you actively, even if you're doing it totally unconsciously, continue to feed it your conscious energy. You are continually rewriting the trauma onto the notepad. Once you stop writing, the subconscious self just dissolves. All right, Section 4, linear versus intuitive minds. We basically have two main approaches to life, the linear mind and the intuitive mind. The linear mind is highly binary. It tries to change reality by moving the smallest individual Lego blocks around. For example, if you're looking at a computer monitor displaying a picture of a mountain, your linear mind is the one trying to exhaustingly change reality, pixel by individual pixel. But the intuitive mind? It realizes you don't actually need to touch a screen at all. You simply change the overall projection being cast out from the computer's processor. You superimpose a whole new image and just leave it to the elementals to organize the pixels. It's a total game changer.
Now for Section 5, the alpha and omega. The teachings define the two forces of co-creation as the alpha and the omega. The alpha is the expanding, self-aware, projecting force. That's you. That's you utilizing your conscious mind to formulate a vision. The omega is the contracting, passive force that actually takes on the projected form. That's the elemental matter, the mother light that obediently reflects the alpha's projection. Successful co-creation absolutely requires both. You need the vision of the alpha and the physical manifestation within the omega. But hey, co-creation isn't just pure magic, right? It has strict physical limits based on the environment we live in. For instance, think about the element of water. If your mind is the alpha, can you just use your mind to force liquid water to hold a sculpted physical shape over time? No way, right? The liquid water is just going to flow right through your fingers back into an unformed state. But you can freeze that water into ice, and then you can sculpt it. The omega aspect of co-creation requires you to respect physical realities. A wise co-creator doesn't use their linear mind to stubbornly rebel against the actual parameters of physical substances. You can't sculpt liquid water, and you really shouldn't get frustrated trying to force clay to magically turn into marble. You just accept the medium, adjust your approach, and create within those physical parameters. And that leads us perfectly into Section 6, embracing the gradual flow. You know, the linear binary mind likes to say, well, if mind over matter is real, I should literally be able to teleport 1,000 miles instantly. And when it can't do that, it just decides all these teachings are entirely worthless. But let's look at it a different way. A river starts as a tiny water drop all the way up in the mountains. Can that drop instantly teleport to the ocean? Of course not. It has to flow down the river, covering the distance step by step. Just like that water drop, the teachings emphasize that our spiritual growth and our co-creative abilities must progress in gradual practical increments. You change your identity matrix first, then your mental state, then your emotional state, and finally, the physical will follow. Every single step is part of the reward. Ultimately, it's like you are dropping a rock into this massive ocean of consciousness. By gradually shifting your internal matrix, by consciously withdrawing your energy from those negative subconscious selves and intuitively projecting a totally new vision onto the elemental canvas, you create a ripple effect. This ripple spreads out through the identity, mental, emotional, and physical realms indefinitely. The actual mechanics of consciousness are right there at your fingertips, and the elementals are just waiting for your instructions. Which leaves us with one final essential question for you to consider today. Now that you know the screen is completely blank, what will your next projection manifest in the world around you? Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.